myself included, had a difficult time understanding graphs, so I wanted to discuss a few things that I found useful, and I hope other people can understand it a little bit better as well. So the first figure that I'm showing you is figure 1, which is the effects of intermittent fasting on the body mass of the female mice. In the first one, as you can see, which is the graph A, I really want to point that out, that it's the body mass over the 13-day of intermittent fasting treatment. And I think it's really good to point out that the IF, that stands for the intermittent fasted mice. The IR, or the square, stands for the intermittently fasted restricted mice. And the opened square that's not filled in, which is the AL, represents the control-fed mice. So as we look at this graph, I think the important days to notice are 4, 7, 11, 12, and 13, because there is the most significant difference in that day. And I think it's important to notice that the mice that were intermittent fasted on, for example, day 4, they had the lowest body mass than the mice that were just that were control fed. And as you see for day 4 and day 7, it seems like it's similar results. While when we look at day 11 through day 13, the results are switched. I think it's important to look at that and maybe think about why that occurred. Graph B represents the body mass over the 42-day fast or the food restriction treatment. And it just shows that there's more going on. But through the whole graph, I want to point out that most of the times, the mice that had the triangles, or the mice that were going through the intermittent fasting, they had the lowest body mass, and they had the most significant difference on most of the days, while on the other days, most likely they were above. I just think that's pretty cool. They were above versus being the lowest. Also, it's important to notice that there's more days where there's a significant difference that could be seen in the body mass than we could see in graph A. Then graph C, that represents the body fat mass at different time points during the intermittent fasting / the food restriction treatment. So it combines graph A and graph B. And I want to point out that in most of these cases, the AL, or the control fed, they had the lowest body mass from all of the days, it seems like, except for day 0. While the intermittent fasted mice, they had the highest body fat mass for all of them. I just wanted to point that out, and I hope it helps you guys understand the graph a little bit better. So in figure 3, this is the second graph I want to talk about that was included. I just felt like this was so overwhelming, so I want to discuss just a few things on here. So for example, the first graph A, that represents the 24 hours of physical activity at the baselines. I think it's pretty, because the key is the same as for the other graphs that we looked at, and I think it's pretty cool to see how for all three different kinds of controls that we had, whether it was intermittent fasted mice, whether it was intermittent food restricted mice, or the control fed mice, they had the same pattern of going up and going down and going up and going down. Another thing I want to really discuss is graph E, which represents the daily average physical activity on the 9 fasting and food restriction days. I want to point out that the mice that had intermittent fasting for all the days had the lowest physical activity, while the mice that were control fed had the highest physical activity. And almost all of the days, the mice that were control fed, we could see a significant difference between the mice that were control fed versus the mice that were intermittently fasted. And I just think that's really great to notice. I think that's pretty much it. If anything else, you guys could ask and I could answer it later. I hope you guys get a greater understanding for the graphs. Thank you.